And then the attorney went mad. Written by Illusion of Retention. Read by Arashi. There were newspaper clippings neatly collected on the round end table. They hadn't been touched in a while, and were already turning from a bright white to a vintage brown, with the ends curling slightly. These newspaper clippings held a myriad of conflicting memories, ones that were better left forgotten, or as reminders of his glory. There could be one other reason for their existence, and that is a cruel reminder of what he could have continued to be, rather than what he is now. The reasons linger in the air, and it surrounded him always. Sometimes a foul scent, and sometimes a scent that calms him. The components changed depending on how he chose to perceive it. Kristoph dangled one of the clippings between his fingers and pretended to read it. He already knew the contents. He read these clippings day in and day out, and could recite them word for word and blindfolded. This one in particular was a news article detailing the first case he'd ever won as a defense attorney. It's the very same article that began his rise to fame in the legal world. The paper went on to describe him as enigmatic. It described his methods of defense as unconventional, and it noted how he brought the prosecution to its knees within minutes. It led to another clipping he picks up. As Kristoph became more well-known, many legal-based outlets would criticize his methods, claiming he was ruthless and treated the courtroom as a war zone rather than a place for justice. His means of cross-examining witnesses were, in their words, barbaric, merciless and unneeded. Yet at the end of the day, those witnesses ended up being involved in a way he could not ignore. It's such a shame that the media didn't realize what Kristoph had to do. Break the witness. You only get the truth. One could not simply be kind and expect them to give the truth willingly. What did they know? He is the one who strived to get his badge. He is the one that strived to get his badge. He is the one who spent reckless nights compiling his notes and studying. How could they ever understand? He remembers leaving the Coit House and being bombarded with reporters and rocks being thrown at his face. It broke his glasses, and the shards narrowly missed his eyes. Clavier tended to him that night. Kristoph didn't show any signs of hurt, rather of wrath. Soon after, Kristoph embraced the criticisms and did not change. Despite them, he received more and more clients who knew a man that could effortlessly ignore the emotional reasons behind why a criminal does what they do, would have no problem making sure they would never see the light again. In truth, it is for that very reason he would never reveal his modus operandi for his own crimes. It would follow him to the grave. He is condemned to these bars for the rest of his life, and he has accepted that in earnest. There is no need for him to reveal anything. The events that transpired happened, and there would be no other possible outcome. The clipping drops from his hands and falls almost gracefully back onto the table. In recent days, he's asked for a small, round mirror so he could look at himself. His hair reached barely his upper back these days. He chose to cut it, but the guards did not trust him with a sharp tool alone, so they watched him as he cut his hair and let the strands fall to the ground, and quickly took the scissors away when he was done. In keeping up with recent news, he saw that Clavier's hair grew in length in some random interview regarding his solo career, and he no longer styled it in the iconic twist. As twisted as that might seem, he still cared for Clavier, and it wasn't as if Kristoph truly hated Clavier. There was a time he would have died for his brother, but he knows the opposite was not possible, at least not now. Clavier did visit him sometimes, but it was more out of pity, not of actual care. Kristoph knows Clavier's nature, how he is too kind to show any sort of hatred, but it's dreadfully annoying, and he wishes Clavier would just suck it up and tell Kristoph that he despises him. But he doesn't, so Kristoph is left to do mundane things like tell him how he's doing or listen to what Clavier might be doing in the sunlight. He can't help but think Clavier taunts him, but he simply isn't like that, and it's his mind playing tricks on him. He thinks about Apollo on occasion, how the naive man dared to ask him to be his assistant, even when the media attempted to drag his name through the mud that one time. It was strange. No one approached him for employment. They were too afraid. Except for Apollo, apparently. Kristoph took one look at him and agreed. The way Apollo's eyes widened and how he gawked made him laugh at the time. He didn't ask for credentials, nor to see his resume. He just said yes, and Apollo followed. A fonder memory, even if that was taken away from him. To this day, he cannot think about Phoenix Wright without some sort of malice. It makes him scratch at the chair he always sits in, damaging the wood and cushions. He knows Phoenix tried to be his friend and tried to see the good in him, whatever that could have been, but he hates Phoenix, and that hatred will not die. The fool even tried to visit Kristoph, and Kristoph denied. He would always deny him. What more could he want? He has taken his brother, former protege, and his status away. He will not allow anyone to rub salt in his wounds. He is condemned here, and so he will stay here in peace, with no one to bother him. And so Kristoph will read the newspaper clippings for the second time in a day. He will let them dangle from his fingers when he's done. He'll scratch the wood and cushions of his chair in anger, and allow Claviar to tell him about his day when he visits. He'll call on the memories of what could have been and be snapped back to reality when he is handed food befitting a dog. He'll look at the bluebird he is sometimes allowed to have and watch its sad face, wishing for a better owner. Sometimes he'll let his anger get the better of him, and it ends with a bookcase in his cell falling to the ground on top of him. And when the guards come, Kristoph briefly thinks of taking one of their guns while they're distracted, trying to help him up and escape for petty revenge. But no, he could never do that. His plan, should he ever think of one, would have to be done in elegance. For now, Kristoph sits in his chair, waiting for the day death knocks on his cell to take him to the flames to join the devils.